Hi, I'm Jeremy Shea, the producer of Gavel Alaska. It's sunny again in Juneau. Today's Saturday, February 1st, 2014. Here's what's coming up on Gavel Alaska on Monday, February 3rd, day 14 of the legislative session. It's an education-heavy day. Pretty interesting stuff, likely a long day for us. Live coverage starts at 8 a.m. with both education committees meeting jointly for the governor's omnibus education bill's first hearing. This is the education package that Governor Parnell talked about in his State of the State address. There's a lot of different pieces to this bill. Some of it isn't controversial. It would repeal the high school exit exam requirement, for which there's been bipartisan support. I talked about that in more detail a few videos back. It also folds in the concept from Representative Paul Seaton's bill to require high schools offer a way for its students to test out of certain classes for credit. Seaton's bill had bipartisan support. I talked about that one in my last video, and I think that's hanging out. It probably won't get heard with this bill out there, but it was through its last committee of referral and just is waiting to be scheduled for a vote on the floor, I believe. There's stuff in there to make it easier for charter schools to exist, persist, and grow. If you're not familiar with charter schools, they are public schools that have to meet the same standards regular public schools have to meet and play by most of the same rules, and they're publicly funded. But the archetypal charter school is founded by parents who are dissatisfied with their regular public schools, so they band together and organize and jump through a lot of different hoops to create a charter school. One of those hoops is to convince the local school board to vote yes on the creation of their charter school. One of the wrinkles that often discourages school boards from creating more charter schools is that public education money in our state follows the pupils, which means creating a charter school could undermine regular public schools if those, you're taking students away from your existing schools and sending them to the charter school. So there's a lot of different trade-offs for a school district, and you can see how that can get contentious at the local level. So this bill... Well, let me keep going on charter schools for a second. Once a charter school is up and running, it's fairly autonomous from the local school district. And right now, the local school district is the only authority on approving or denying the creation of a new charter school. One thing this bill does, among other things with charter schools, is that it lets the charter applicants who get denied at the local level appeal to the State Department of Education to have their charter school made. So Parnell and a lot of other conservatives are strong advocates for charter schools. Another important thing in this omnibus education bill is an increase in the BSA, the base student allocation. I've talked about this a couple of times now. That's the $5,600-ish the state pays local school districts per pupil, plus or minus modifiers for a bunch of different variables, school size, geography, individual student needs, etc. So that's a big deal. It's something educators have been asking for years. The governor has been resistant to messing with the BSA until this year. In the press availability with the governor after his State of the State address, the press corps had some good questions trying to get at why he was amenable to changing the BSA now. Parnell said it was to draw out two entrenched sides on education issues, get them to the table together. Matt Buxton with the News Miner pointed out that Parnell doesn't need to detrench the Democrats in the legislature since, Parnell's basically got a Republican supermajority. Parnell said something to the effect of, well, that's what leaders do, There's more things in this bill I won't get into today, but there's clearly going to be a lot of legislative energies put into this bill throughout this year's session. So that's our first meeting of the day. At 9 a.m., we're following SJR 9 in the Senate Finance Committee. Again, this is another education piece of legislation. This is Senator Mike Dunleavy's. He's a Republican from Wasilla whose professional background is in public schools. I think he was a teacher, a principal, and then superintendent in the Matsu. SJR 9 would create a ballot question asking voters to amend the state's constitution to lift the existing ban on using public money on private and religious schools. SJR 9 needs a 2/3 majority to pass in the legislature, but lifting that ban's a big deal. It opens doors to voucher systems. It creates funding concerns for public schools, similar to the charter school issue, where the money, if the students leave the public school system for the private school systems or religious schools, that undermines the public schools. there's there's a free market argument for. Wait for this loud truck to pass by. There's a free market argument too, that creating more schools creates more competition, which makes the entire system work better, even if it is undermining the funding along the way. Governor Parnell has said he wants SJR 9 to pass. At 11, we'll follow the House and Senate floor sessions, nothing substantive on either of their calendars. At 1 p.m., we'll be in the House Resources Committee. Representative Tammie Wilson's HB 163 is the draw there for me today. On that day. This is a Fairbanks targeted bill. It deals with heating issues and air quality issues. Basically, Fairbanks has bad air quality because it's so cold and not very windy there. So when people burn stuff to keep from freezing, that smoky air just kind of hangs out, which is bad for breathing. And has pretty serious health consequences over time. It's probably less serious, or at least less immediate, than freezing to death, which is where there's sort of this dilemma that makes it hard to deal with this politically. The Fairbanks hasn't done enough to deal with this, so the EPA has been threatening to withhold federal highway money until the air quality issues are resolved. Anyway, so Representative Wilson's bill sort of puts some boundaries on the types of heating stoves that can be sold in areas on the EPA's bad air quality list, specifically PM 2.5 non-attainment areas. I'll just unpack that real quick for you. PM 2.5 means, the PM means particulate matter. The 2.5 is a measurement. It's like nanometers or something. Particulate matter of a certain size. That's and that PM 2.5 is basically smoky air, is the culprit in Fairbanks. Non-attainment means not meeting the EPA standards. So the only place that applies to in the state is Fairbanks. At 1:30, we'll have a Ledge TV stream of the budget hearing in the House Finance. We'll also be in Senate Judiciary, continuing to follow the omnibus crime and corrections bill I talked about the other day. This is the reform-minded one. It makes life a little easier on certain criminals and substance abusers in ways that have been tested and proven to reduce recidivism. At 3:30, we'll be in Senate Resources Committee for natural gas and liquefied natural gas and gas pipeline talks. And the last thing we're covering on Monday, it could take a while, it's the Senate Finance Committee is coming back at 6 p.m. to take public testimony on SJR 9. So we'll follow that and go run over our normal 7 o'clock time slot until they wrap. That's it for Monday. Feel free to comment, ask me questions, and make requests. My email is jeremy@ktoo.org, and I'm at JMLJ on Twitter, and we'll be tweeting under @Gavel Alaska on Monday and most days. Thanks.